Hello and welcome to the next episode of DDR, a podcast all about your favorite Drow, Drizzt Do'Urden. My name is Justin, and in this episode, we'll be diving deep into part 1 of Sojourn. Yep, that's right, we're starting the third book, part 1 of Sojourn, titled Sunrise, discussing all of our favorite plot points, characters, and more.
And my name is Jeffrey, and since this is part 1, that means we're going to start taking a look at this part of the book and how it relates to our favorite tabletop role-playing game. That would be Dungeons & Dragons 5e, but I'm not really sure how you would end up here on this episode if you didn't already know that, but you know what, just in case, we got you covered.
Totally. All right, following along with the show is easy. Just grab a copy of the book, read the next part of the book, and tune in every week. But remember, we want to hear your thoughts too. Share them with us. Send them to us at drizztdoneright@gmail.com.
Or better yet, be part of the ongoing discussion in our very own Drizzt Done Right Drizztcord.
Love it. Love it!
The Drizztcord invitation is linked in the podcast description. We like to incorporate you all from the show. You know, like recently, one of our house nobles has been dealing with a knee injury, so we wanted to make sure we gave him kind of like, a get well shout out. Sevik the Grey got a little knee injury, he's banged up. Hopefully, it mends quickly. Justin, speaking of catastrophic injuries, how have you been?
What is that supposed to mean?
Oh, well, no. I just needed a transition. I didn't mean to imply that you were injured as well.
Oh, I got you. I'm like, I think I'm okay. I'm okay, right? I was like, this is just my face, Jeffrey.
This is how I look when I talk.
No, I'm doing great. A lot of stuff has been going on, but yet, today was just a rainy Saturday, and so I know I already told you, I just got to enjoy some time with the kids, and we're stuck inside, and so I was just playing Super Mario 3D. No, I'm sorry. Christopher was watching someone play that. We were playing Super Mario World together on the Super Nintendo.
Nice.
Down in the basement. I love that game. That's one of my favorite from that generation. Nice. And it's so much fun playing 2-player in that because he just keeps dying. He's only 6 years old. He's not great at the game. Every once in a while, he'll come through and he'll beat a level, and it's like, all right. But usually he goes in and he dies at the first bad guy. So then it becomes more of a challenge for me because then I have to share my lives. I'm just like, you're out of lives. Okay, here, take 5 of mine. He's like, I want more than 5. I'm like, okay, take 25.
It's like, here, I put in all this work to great. You know what? Just take them all.
Yeah.
I will solo run the entire levels. Never die.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Pretty much. I mean, every once in a while I'd fall down a cliff, down into the abyss, and it's just like, wow, that's not like me. But there was that, but then also other big news. Since we last recorded, the MetaQuest 3 came out, Jeffrey. 4 days ago, I got the new VR headset. I feel so weird wearing it, but it is so cool. I've never owned a VR headset before. But I went and I got this $10 Star Wars game. And in that game, you meet Darth Vader. He comes walking right up to you, and it just feels like he's right there, and he's towering over me. And I'm a pretty tall person. I'm sitting at 6'2", 6'3", and here this guy is standing higher than me, and I'm just I feel so small. Yeah.
Oh man, we did one down in Disney. I can't remember the name of it. I think it was the Void or something like that.
Okay.
And it was a full VR setup. So they get a little backpack and you're hooked into a little moving line kind of deal. But the whole room is set up so that you can walk and move as well.
That's wild.
So
that's so cool.
You have the headset on and you're trying to follow a path, because in the VR you follow across the bridge. But then they've set the warehouse up so that you're moving and you can actually move instead of just sitting and pressing a button to move.
Right.
And it just really adds to it because then you're looking down over the side of the bridge oh, that's lava.
Yeah.
Yep. You're getting fired at by droids. It's pew, pew. Oh, bro, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, and so in this game you get a lightsaber and you're reflecting the laser blast back, and it's so cool. I love it.
Nice.
I already beat that game, but it's I'm going through it a second time because I'm this is too cool to only play once. But Anyway, how have you been?
Pretty good, pretty good. On that 6-day work week schedule for a couple of weeks now, and
That's pretty rough.
it's tiring.
Yeah, totally.
But
Yeah.
I got a bunch of the reality shows me and Elizabeth watch together out. Like Big Brother's got a couple more weeks left in it, I think.
Okay.
And Survivor just started, so we're just sitting around, spending some quality time, enjoying some TV together. It's always fun for me.
That is fun.
I'm a pretty easygoing homebody. I don't really need to, go out and see fireworks on the 4th of July every night or anything crazy like that. Like I like to just sit back, put on some TV sometimes, and just relax.
That's one of the best things.
Yeah.
It really is just so much fun. I just got an ad I saw that they're playing Spam-A-Lot at Broadway, and I never saw it. And I saw it, and I just had this like this sudden urge to just like, let's get out of the house, let's go see this, let's like get out for a night. And we haven't put anything in, we haven't booked a room or anything, but it's just kind of like, well, or we could just like get someone to watch the kids and just like hang out at home, because like that's also really nice.
Yeah, man. No, I totally agree that it's for me. I get to go out. Elizabeth does the orchestra and stuff, so I get to go sit down in a it was heated last time, so it was quite warm.
Ooh.
But I get to sit there and enjoy some classical music, and
Nice.
it's pretty cool. They have a new conductor, so I like it. It's a good time to get out, and it's not the craziest, most expensive thing in the world to do.
Yeah, totally. All right, well, here we are, part 1 of Sojourn. Let's go ahead and talk about this book that we're just starting out here.
It's the third book in the first part of the trilogy. Oh no, okay, go ahead. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. First part, third book.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Let's start things off with the insight check. The insight check. Let's start the show by taking a look at this week's letter from Drizzt and roll an insight check on it. So it burned at my eyes and pained every part of my body. That was one of the first quotes that Drizzt gave, right? Drizzt, of course, was talking about the sun. All of his equipment, being enchanted by Drow, are slowly losing their magical properties. Some of them, like his Pawafwi and boats, are being reduced to tatters from the harmful rays of the sun. Drizzt, however, did not cower like I thought he did, right? Or would.
Right.
He didn't hide. He remained in his judgment seat, accepting his fate. After some years went by. Years. You always think like from book to book to book it's going to be very continuous, but no, there's years have gone by here. And Drizzt still could not deny the physical pain he was put in as he absorbed the morning rays, but he also could not deny the beauty. The colors given off by the sunrise were more beautiful than anything he had seen using his infravision in the Underdark. The sun had become this symbol of his new life, away from the Underdark. There was no way that the norms of Drow culture could exist out here in the literal broad daylight. So like he's completely left it behind, and it's just this huge, I mean he can't ignore it. It's an unignorable, an obvious symbol to him, or an obvious reminder every single hour of every single day that he's no longer in Menzoberranzan. I was going to say at home, but he never really felt home. Never really felt like that was home.
No, it's kind of interesting that you say that it was that the Drow cultures couldn't exist in the sunlight, right? Because neither can the Drow magic, right? The Drow allure, maybe, so to speak. So the conditioning that the Academy has on him, the everything that's just been like stacked and brainwashed into him, like all kind of burns away after a while from the rays of the sun. Like,
yeah, it's wild.
I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, so this insight check that we have here, this letter from Drizzt is very. It's almost like a second view at the prelude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the prelude was very much talking about this situation, and then here we have another reiteration of of a similar situation. So a couple questions came to mind while reading this. Just number one, what do you think would compare to being a drow in the sun? Like, exactly what kind of pain or how much pain do you think he's in when he's out there? I mean, yeah, what do you think?
Well, like I don't think that his skin is burning. You
Okay.
know what I mean, like a vampire or something like that. But it's kind of like, I mean, it's almost like an analogy to being a fish out of water, right? The pain, the inability to grasp and cope, except he can force himself through it. So it's, I mean, it would have to be like, I would think, like maybe being in the desert where you feel the heat of the sun and it
Oh,
leaches out
maybe,
the
yeah.
water and it stings your eyes because there's no reprieve. Like you're not finding shadows, there's no shade.
Right.
You know, it'd be like one of us being out in the desert for an extended period of time, or Drizzt seeing a sunrise.
Right. So, yeah, what comes to my mind? Yeah, physical pain. I don't know. You know, like I don't feel like I don't feel like he's getting burned in the sun, like you said, like a vampire. But what comes to my mind is that, you know, like when you're inside on a winter day when there's snow outside and it's like just completely clear, there's no clouds in the sky, and then you go outside and it's just like so bright and you're just like, oh.
Yeah,
You know
call
that
it what,
feeling?
snowblind?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Well, I watched a show where these guys, the dual survivors, and the guy like literally would make sunglasses out of duct tape with slits in it to keep from being snowblind because the UV rays will bounce off the snow, and then when it hits your
Right.
eyes, it can literally cause like damage, if not like
Yeah.
temporary blindness.
Oh, totally. Yeah. That's
It's
wild.
actually probably a really good comparison.
And then another question I had was, how do you think Drizzt is feeling after feeling and seeing his drow wear turning to tatters? Just his physical belongings just starting to like
Yeah.
disintegrate on him. What do you think is going through his mind?
At first, you want to be like, man, he's probably feeling a little like, like anxiety, or he's feeling. I think he feels free.
Yeah?
You know, that
Okay.
his past and the shackles, the hold that it's had on him, everything is just crumbling and falling apart, and he still stands.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking something similar. Definitely. I know he would be totally, like, very concerned that his something would happen to his scimitars, you know?
Right.
I feel like that would be a very real fear of his. But yeah, just his clothes. I don't think he's too worried about that. I feel like you said, it's a weight that is leaving his shoulders, almost literally, you know?
Yeah.
Finally making that last disconnect. Well,
When we poked,
That was
I made that funny little comment before. It's like, he's like a butterfly coming into, out of his chrysalis, shedding everything. And,
oh yeah.
now he doesn't have to be the angry drow. He can be who he wants to be. He can live by his own convictions. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't have this giant society that's telling him, you must be this kind of drow.
Totally. All right. Well, that's all I have for the insight check. I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, I think that kind of squares it up for me as well, sir.
All right. Well, then let's go ahead and get to the drizzt of it.
The Drizzt of it is the part of the show where we take a look at the next part and give you the Drizzt of it. Chapter 1 is called Poignant Lessons, and we start off and Drizzt has been living out of a cave mouth, getting adjusted to the world around him. The rise and fall of the sun, the strange silver disk that sometimes hangs in the sky after the sun goes away. He's so used to the reliability of Narbondale that it's odd to see the sun rise and fall at different times. But suddenly the cave mouth is threatened by an animal.
I didn't think about that. He does
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about how the sun rises and falls at different times, right? Like the days are getting
Yep.
shorter, so you know it's winter. Yeah, no, that's cool. That's a good catch.
No, and the first thing it reminded me of was like his whole life, Narbondale has been up and down,
Right.
reliably and consistent the whole time.
Right. Huh. That's cool.
Suddenly, his cave mouth is threatened by an animal. As Drizzt and Gwen begin to investigate, the stench that covers them is a lesson that will make Drizzt remember the small animal with black fur and a white stripe forever. No one likes being sprayed by a skunk.
And it's Pepe Le Pew.
Oh, I chuckled about that because I know I've read the book before, but you come back in, you still you hit the scenes that kind of refresh it. And I was like,
Right.
oh right, because to Drizzt he's being hunted or he's hunting this predatory animal because the Underdark has all the
Right.
It's a skunk. It's a skunk.
I laughed out loud when I realized. I was like, wait, it's a skunk.
Yeah, I almost did it for my dim light. I was like, no, I'll pick something else.
That's definitely going to be someone's dim light. That's for sure.
In an effort to wash off the stink, he jumped into a river and remembers the fight with Zack and everything that went into it as he sees his scimitars, only a few feet away, but far further than he'd ever left them in Menzo Berenstain. Mm-hmm. Despite all the changes and the variables around him out here in the wild, he's at peace with his decision to leave the Underdark. The problem he suddenly faced, though, was whether or not he was at peace with the creatures that stood suddenly on the bank pointing weapons toward his direction.
It's like the
Drizzt
one time
Yeah.
he leaves his equipment too far away.
Right after he says, like, well, I guess this isn't as threatening of a place, really. It's like, oh, hey, here's a threat. So Drizzt knew what a knoll was, but these were a little different than the slaves they had back in Menzo Berenstain. And they unfortunately stood between him and his scimitars. The Academy taught him that gnolls were a goblinoid race that was evil, unpredictable, and quite dangerous. I mean, come to think of it, that's what they said about everyone who wasn't a Drow.
Yeah.
Talk about irony. Drizzt outlined them in Fairy Fire in an attempt to discourage them, but the leader was not swayed. They tried to communicate, but they didn't really speak each other's language. The few words that Drizzt could make out, in a halting goblin language with a bad dialect, led him to feel safe, coming out of the water and meeting his new friends. Well, I mean, at least not enemies at the moment. So they make their way along a path, continuing to try to get to know each other as they came upon a farmhouse. The leader made clear that those were their enemies. Drizzt wasn't sure about how humans and gnolls interacted. Really wasn't even sure what side he should be on or even if he should choose a side. But when the leader intimated that the children down there would be part of the hunt, Drizzt realized what he had to do. Mm-hmm. And quickly there was only one gnoll. Fled the massacre until Gwen ran him down. Drizzt had second thoughts, but the panther was quicker than Drizzt's conscience. And, well, soon there were no gnolls.
Yeah.
Chapter 2 is called Questions of Conscience. Drizzt's conscience bothered him, but when he caught up to the scene, only Gwen remained alive. What had he done? The last human he met was a wizard, and that person was responsible for hurting his friend Clacker. What if he was wrong about the gnolls? What if they were innocent? The conditioning at the academy had left him unsure about what he knew, about what he was taught. Mm-hmm. Lost in his despair, he tried to send Gwen away, but she slapped the figurine away with her paw and nuzzled Drizzt, the best of friends, companions through it all. Gwen stayed by his side as Drizzt worked through his thoughts until the next morning's sunrise. The extended time exhausted the panther, but their bond was strong and she was there to comfort him. After finding no sleep, Drizzt decided that he was going to spy on the human village and determine if he'd been right or wrong. If he were to remain in this world, he must then begin to understand it. He remembered the lesson from the academy about humans. Human wizards have no fewer ambitions than drow wizards, but while a drow may take centuries to accomplish their goal, humans had only a few short decades.
I thought that was interesting. I like that.
I love that line. I had to keep that like word for word because the way they put that was like, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Did the lack of time make humans reckless? Or perhaps maybe they found their enjoyment in the small pleasures, despite their short existence. As Drizzt saw the humans below, he saw the farmers working the field, he saw humans interact and tend to the animals. He watched the kids play games, and even though he couldn't understand their language, he knew what he was watching.
He was watching Little House on the Prairie is what he was watching.
I'm not sure if our audience is going to remember what Little House on the Prairie is. Hopefully.
Honestly, I don't really. I just know it was a thing. I don't remember really
Laura
watching
Ingalls
it.
comes running down the field in the beginning like, oh, I did watch it. The family in the village was closer to Blingdenstone than to Menzo Berenstain. His guilt began to abate.
Yeah.
The days passed, and Drizzt realized that he would protect this family against any other dangers. But he also knew it would be dangerous to be seen. In the middle of his musings, he saw a little one from the family wander off into the woods, surely shirking chores, so he decided to follow the youth and make sure he was safe. The boy grew wise to being followed, but didn't know it was a drow that was following him. So he set up a trap to catch his siblings, but ended up being caught by Gwen. Drizzt attempted to communicate, but only ended up sending the child running away, screaming, "It's a Drizzit!" I almost feel like that's an exact jab at how everybody tried to pronounce Drizzt's name, right?
It totally was. And that was why I almost made that my dim light, because it was just like, that's too funny. Because everyone...
Funny you should say that. I did.
Did you really? Nice.
Yep.
Nice.
Well, the whole interaction with it.
Awesome.
Yes, I did.
So we'll talk about that.
Chapter 3 was The Whelps. It took 3 chapters, and we find a goblin named Nathak. Nathak found the party of gnolls, and it turned out that, well, he was going to have to tell Ugulu about it. And he didn't feel it was going to go well. Ugulu had a taste for vengeance. The purple-skinned master could tear a tree from the ground with his bare hands. Nathak was ribbed by the guards to of the chamber of Ugulu and their sibling, or Ugulu's sibling, Kempfana. Nathak quickly tried to explain to Kempfana, but Ugulu heard from the other room, and his anger led them to quickly eat Nathak.
So wait, hold on.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What's going on here, Jeffrey?
Well, it turns out I was wrong. That's 3 books now in a row that I suddenly feel empathy for a goblin.
Yeah.
Yep. Nope. You were right on that one. Taking the viewers back to episode 0, Justin was right. Unfortunately, now he can clip that and play it over
and over, and I'll just make a whole YouTube video of it.
Ugulu and Kempfana were Barghest whelps from Gehenna. Away from the material plane, they were here to eat and grow, and while Nathak wasn't a great meal, every morsel counts in the end. Ugulu called on Tefanis, a quickling, a diminutive sprite that scouted out the best targets for Ugulu to eat and grow quickly. But this time he would go find out the truth of what happened to his gnolls. Back at the farm, the young boy whose name was Liam was trying to explain to his family what a Drizzit was and how it had tried to attack him in the woods. His family was used to his long tales, and no one believed him. This one didn't believe this one to be true either.
He was the youngest in the family, right? I think he was the.
I believe so. They said he was no older than 10, but he was the one I believe that kept getting dipped in the pig trough and such. So I think it was the youngest.
Right. Yeah. So no one believes the youngest child. I was the youngest child. I know.
Especially when that younger child is mischievous, right? Ugh. Give me 1 second. My computer unplugged. No.
Oh no. So yeah. I really feel a lot of empathy or sympathy. Which one is it for Liam? Because yeah, growing up, I was always the one that was picked on. I did grow up on a farm. We didn't have pigs, but if we did, I'm sure I would have also gotten dipped in the pig trough. That actually reminds me, my one time when I was, I don't know, probably like 3 or 4, my cousins came over and they cut open a zucchini and they started dumping all kinds of junk in it, and they convinced me, this like 3 or 4-year-old, that they made a bomb out of it.
Oh no.
And yeah, I totally fell for it, and I was like terrified of it.
The zucchini's gonna blow. So the other young ones, they made their way into where Liam was being kept as a punishment, purely to tease him just a little bit. But amid the teasing, Liam came up with a plan to prove his truth. They're gonna go pick blueberries. They just had to convince their older brother to take them, and, well, luckily, Eleni might be able to convince him to take them.
Man.
It turns out that Eleni could convince Connor because he owed her quite a few favors and was more than happy to lighten that debt just a little bit.
I just want to butt in real quick. Jeffrey, almost every single name you have pronounced so far, I pronounce differently.
They almost all have L's in them too, and let me tell you, it is tough to throw them out there like that. If I could buy any more vowels.
Well, I guess there was Liam, Connor, that's fine, but I pronounced Eleni, not Eleni.
Oh, that's
Eleni.
not bad.
What was the other one? Uglu. I mean, I guess that one's similar enough.
Is what I was going. I don't know.
Uglu. I don't know. Anyway,
the electric boogaloo.
Yeah, exactly.
The children made their way to the blueberry patch, led by Connor and his crude sword, but Drizzt saw the ploy coming from a mile away. Mm-hmm. He knew they didn't believe the little one, and that this was how the child was going to prove his story. Eleni went into the middle of the patch and then threw herself to the ground, crying for help, just as Liam had, and Drizzt went to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
But he had been alone for so long, he missed Belwar. He missed his father and friend Zachnafane, and watching the siblings play, he realized it was time to meet his neighbors.
I was
He had
so
guessed
excited
poorly.
for this part, Jeffrey. I was so excited.
I was like, this is not gonna go well. He guessed poorly, and the children were all just more than a little bit shocked as a drow came forth peacefully. Connor attempted to jump in and protect Eleni, who watched from behind her brother but refused to run. I like that they showed the little courage in her there.
Mm-hmm.
Drizzt quickly disarmed the youth and gave the weapon back. This display of gamesmanship without injury was a drow way of showing maybe like a wish for peace or friendship with each other.
Right.
Unfortunately, Connor soiled himself and the children all ran away.
Try explaining
From the
that
side.
to your parents. How did you mess your pants?
It was a drow. From the side, Tifanis had eyes on the situation. They already had found the gnolls and were having trouble reconciling what had happened till they found the dark elf. Tifanis moves with blinding speed, doubling and tripling back on their path so they wouldn't be followed as they made their way back to Ogulu with the information. We come to chapter 4, is named Worries. Farmer Bartholomew took the story of the drow to the mayor. Bart had never had personal experience with a drow, but he was wary. The gathered men made light of Connor's encounters, and no one really believed the story, except for the farmer. He trusted his children. A large bear-sized man named Roddy McGristle. What a great name, right? Roddy
Nice.
McGristle.
Love it. Love it.
Spoke up. He was a mountain man.
Yes,
the
he
fiercest
was.
of the group. He doubted the story because there were survivors. If it were a drow, there simply would have been a slaughter. But there were other things in the woods that could bring harm and should be investigated. Bartholomew tried to challenge him, but Roddy didn't mind and started naming what it could have been. But he did agree that they should go out and find out for themselves. Back in a cave, Ogulu and Kempfana worried over the drow. One might not be a problem, but a war party would prove disastrous. The whelps weren't invulnerable, and the village had been a source of easy meals that would dry up if a band of dark elves showed up. Ogulu called on Tifanis not to attack, or to kill the drow, but to learn more about him and perhaps grab a weapon. After all, if it were a lone drow, then perhaps it could prove a convenient cover for the murderous meals the Barghest whelps needed to return home. Drizzt watched the farmers coming from a mile away. Understanding this to be a hunting party, Drizzt yearned for contact, but he knew this was not the time. The man with the large axe and the 2 dogs didn't look like a welcoming committee. Drizzt concocted a plan. He called Guinevere forth and set the cat off to give the villagers something to hunt. When they glimpsed the panther, they were all too eager to believe that this is what the kid had seen. All of them except Roddy McGristle.
Mm-hmm.
He knew a decoy when he saw it, and he had never seen a cat like this in these woods, and he had a good idea where to look for the source of this diversion. Drizzt stood off in the woods, pondering a way to try and make contact with the villagers, when a buzz that he had heard several times came again. Something flashed by too quickly for him to react and actually drew blood from his wrist. His scimitar wrenched from his hand. In the distance stood a diminutive creature holding a scimitar in one hand that was, I guess, like twice its size. It almost was touching the ground. And a small, blood-dripping dagger in the other. Drizzt realized that his opponent's advantage and tried to find a more defensible position, but his cry of surprise had brought Roddy McGristle crashing through the brush at the drow.
Yeah.
Drizzt quickly slashed at the first dog and then threw himself backwards, letting the other one impale itself on the scimitar.
Oh.
Roddy bellowed in rage and charged in with the axe. The axe was quick, but Drizzt was quicker, and a felled pine tree pinned the hunter to the ground. Drizzt escaped while the hunter just kept roaring, "Damn ye, drow!"
What's it? I mean, this is almost it's not quite the beginning of John Wick, but you know, like when you have someone killing a dog, it's like, oh man, Roddy is coming back.
Personally.
He's coming back with a vengeance, you know.
I feel like you got to say his whole name every time. I don't know if you've noticed that, but he's never been Mr. McGristle nor Roddy. It's
Roddy doesn't
McGristle.
quite fit, does it? Nah, it doesn't work. It's Roddy McGristle. It doesn't work the other way, any other way.
The other members of the village came back empty-handed, wondering what had happened to Roddy, who was still pinned under the tree and pining over his dogs, and the damned drow who had killed one of them and cost him an ear.
Oh, I forgot
The
about
mayor
that.
assessed the situation. Yeah, like I was like, wait, he cut the dog's ear off? No, it's Roddy's ear. I guess the tree falling had ripped it off.
Oh, I figured it was like a... Oh, yeah, I guess it was that, wasn't it? Yeah, that's right.
I think so. The mayor assessed the situation and quickly came to the conclusion. They needed a ranger.
The tree's name from here on out is Mike Tyson.
Oh, because it took his ear. I was like, why? I get it. So that brings us to chapter 5 and the stalk of doom. Can I say when I first read that, I was like, you mean like the stalk of a plant? The stalk of like a thistle?
Oh.
What? Oh, no, not at all.
I don't even think I really paid attention to it.
Oh, because I'd like to read the chapter
Yeah, no.
names, before I start reading.
Yeah.
Like, oh, the stalk of doom. What is it, like
shoot,
the Myconoid people's revenge? Olgulu ran down the mountain, teleporting through a door to a spot that he could see in order to cover rough terrain without slowing, the scimitar of Drizzt in his hand. Olgulu longed to feed, but he was smart and realized that tonight was cause for a cover story, not a feast. He shapeshifted into a drow and made his way toward the farm. I love the way it described like his bones breaking.
Oh,
and
yeah.
sounds.
That was
that's
really
just such a visceral description.
Yeah, totally.
Bartholomew and Connor sat debating how to defend their farm, if they should move closer to safety, but a muffled cry suddenly took the choice from them. They walked outside as a dark elf walked into the farmyard. They ran at what appeared to be a slender drow, but slammed into something larger.
Right? It was this like illusion almost. It wasn't like a true polymorph. It was more like an illusion.
Yep, that's the one that like you appear to be something, but if they like look deeper or try to touch you, then it's not, or they'll actually touch you instead of what your projection is.
Right, yeah.
Connor was almost cut in half.
Crazy.
Oh,
yeah.
Poor kid.
Yeah.
Olgulu used innate powers to instill terror in Bartholomew, who charged forward only to be quickly dispatched.
Yep.
I say that, but I guess they didn't really know if he was quickly dispatched because they said they didn't know if he saw or was conscious for his own end. I was like, after getting your head crushed on the... no. Olgulu wanted to devour the old man, but he pushed away the desire to feed again and stalked to where the children were.
Crazy.
Drizzt came to the farm the next day, set on finding a way to connect with the children again. But he didn't see any activity. I mean, perhaps the farmers had fled, but something felt wrong. Drizzt waited throughout the day, but no lights appeared in the windows. Well, he grew concerned. He made his way to the barn and saw the horses in the stall. The body of the older woman, crumbled, covered in blood. In the house, he found far worse. The bodies of the 2 still children. Not 2 children, 2 still. He could not help feel he was somehow to blame.
The children that were 2 still. I gotcha.
Yeah, I didn't realize that I had wrote that in a confusing way until I tried to read it.
No, yeah, when even like I'm reading it with you here, and when I heard you read it, I was like, oh yeah, there were 2 children? No, there were more than that, but yeah.
Yeah, well, we know that there was at least Eleni and
Liam. Yeah, I guess Connor.
But then you also had, and I am horrible with names, the one that tried to peek in and say, hey, what are you guys doing, when Eleni was questioning and giving Liam a hard time. So there's at least, I think, 3, maybe 4 children.
At least 3 young children. Connor's one of the children as well, just not that young.
Yeah, he's on like the cusp of adulthood, though.
Yeah. So there's at least...
That's what I got when like 5. You had the whole mayor scene going back and forth. I'm sure you probably remember, to a time when like you wanted to talk to the adults and you're like, no, this is important. And they were like, haha, yes, child. Yeah. We understand. Yep. Hold on. We'll get back to you.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah, I want to talk more, but I don't want to like give away my dim light reel here. We'll just jump right into the dim light reel. How about that?
I love it.
Perfect. Let's go. The dim light reel, it's where we cast darkness on our favorite parts from this week, and we dim light all of our favorite characters, events, descriptions, and more. Jeffrey, it just crossed my mind, like literally just now. I haven't thought about this at all, like before this. We're not in the Underdark anymore.
No, we're outside. That's why I started with the cave mouth.
Does it, calling it the dim light reel, does that still apply? Does it still make sense?
For branding purposes, yes.
There we go. All right. So my dim light this week. Oh man. Yeah, it's a Drizzt. The skunk thing. That would have been great too. But yeah, it has to be the climax of part 1. The demise of the Thistledown family. Not because I liked it, like
Right.
Like
Not because you were cheering, like,
Right.
way to go, Thistledowns.
but it was so surprising. It really caught me off guard entirely. I was not ready for that. Throughout this whole first part, it's just like, oh yeah, we're gonna get to know these people. They're gonna be here the whole book.
Yeah, Drizzt is gonna protect them. Oh,
There goes that.
shucks.
But yeah, by the end of chapter 4, Drizzt was found out by the villagers, right? And just in time for Ogaloo to set his plan into motion. And like, what is his plan? His plan is to just wreak havoc on the farming town under the guise of a Drow elf. But I'm a little confused as to what he's hoping to accomplish here. Yeah, I'm not so sure yet. I guess it's to get the villagers to stop looking for the Barghest. Or Barghest?
It's to make sure they never look for the Vargas. Because up until this point, he's been very calm, or very good about choosing targets. So like, as far as we know, the villagers aren't out there leading raiding parties looking for a couple of Barghest who are eating people.
Right.
What he wants to do, though, is maybe increase his feeding schedule and then blame the Drow instead of ever being discovered. Like, oh, there's a Drow in the woods. That's why people are disappearing.
Okay. Like, I was feeling like getting the villagers excited about the Drow in the woods wouldn't be great for him, just because they're going to go hunting out there for the Drow, and they could possibly end up in Ogaloo's cave. That's really hard to say.
Try reading that name with a bunch of other L names in succession.
So, yeah, I was just a little confused as to that. But yeah, I guess if they're thinking they're going out there to find a Drow, I don't know.
It's like, imagine you're a vampire and you don't want anybody to know that you're feeding on people, right? Well, you'd have to have those deaths be explained in some way. And it's far easier to give them a boogeyman that's not a vampire than it is for you, because you don't worry about them coming to get you. You're a big old Bargus, and you're not invulnerable, but they're just humans.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
guess.
So it's like, I feel like it's just a convenient way to cover up the future slaughters to come.
I guess. Well, anyway, like, whatever his motivation is, at the beginning of chapter 5, Ogaloo sets off toward the Thistledown farm. It's night, and the men of the family are discussing the dangers of remaining at the farm, considering the Drow in the woods, right? And they ultimately seem to at least come to the conclusion that they should probably stay in town the next night. Unfortunately, the, quote, Drow was making his move tonight. We know that it was Ogaloo, right? Mm-hmm. Connor, Bart, and I think Mark was Bart's father, the grandfather, right? Mark.
I don't know.
I think that's what it was. Mark with an E on the end. I believe that's what it was. Here's
Marquet?
Marquet. Yeah,
Go ahead.
totally probably mispronouncing that one, right? The easiest one. But they hear screams from the barn. But when they get out there, a Drow emerges. And here is where things got interesting, Jeffrey. I thought, like I said before, I was so confident that Ogaloo would kill one, maybe two of them, right? Just enough for them to see, like, oh, it's the Drow. They killed that person, and then he ran off, right? Perhaps, but like what I was thinking was like he would come in, kill one or two of them, and then like Bart would probably be the one that died. I was thinking that the dad was going to die, and then Connor would have this motivation to hunt down Drizzt, thinking that Drizzt killed him, right? Killed his father. Right. So that's what I thought was happening. But apparently Salvatore, he was not going that direction, right?
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Ogaloo ended up killing Connor first. In a very gruesome way. He brought Drizzt's... Oh, wait. No, it wasn't Drizzt's sword, was it? Or was it? No.
I think it was.
Yeah. It was Drizzt's sword. Yeah, he had Drizzt's sword from the... what was that quickling's name?
Tifanis or Tifanis?
Tifanis? Yeah. So that's how he got Drizzt's scimitar. and he brought it down on Connor's head so forcefully that the boy was nearly cleaved in two. I was shook after that. I thought for sure Connor was sticking around.
Yeah. I mean, Connor and Liam for sure is going to be like, yeah, I agree.
Right. And then, from there, Ogaloo went into the house, grabbed Bart, and slammed him up into the ceiling, breaking his neck. Or at least it's described like there's basically no way he couldn't have broken his neck. And then he ended up stabbing Mark in the chest with Drizzt's scimitar. Like, the three men were dead.
Quickly.
So quickly. In, like, just a few paragraphs. I was like, whoa. It was crazy. And
Spent
then
4 chapters getting to know them, less than 4 chapters to see them all be erased.
Less than 4 paragraphs.
Less than 4 paragraphs.
Ogaloo then heard a cry from the other room, where the children would normally sleep. Jeffrey, again, this did not go the way I thought it would. I thought the farmers were in it for the long haul. I thought that we were going to get to know them really well. I thought they were going to be like heroes alongside of Drizzt. And it seems as if Salvatore just went on vacation and gave George R. R. Martin responsibility to finish up Chapter 5 for him.
If that were the case, he would still be writing it.
Nice. So this part just had me so shocked and so I felt so safe. I've just felt so safe, but now I don't, like I feel like anyone could die. I mean, I know Drizzt is safe, right? Because he has how many more books left, but man, I was getting so attached to them. I was really hoping they were sticking around. So, it's not that the fact that the Thistledown family is dead, that is my dim light, but just that totally caught me by surprise. And so
I think it's one of the more like emotional, heart-wrenching kind of moments.
Yeah, so that's why I had to make that my dim light.
Excellent. I like it. My dim light, I went with A Lone Child Wanders Off. It's the moment that young Liam wanders away from the farm and Drizzt gets to meet his first villager face to face. Liam is the youngest Thistledown, and Drizzt grew concerned as he watched him wander off from the farm, undoubtedly trying to avoid his chores. Drizzt wanted to applaud the boy's carefree attitude.
I like that.
But he wasn't convinced of the child's wisdom in wandering away in such dangerous terrain. The young child was thin and delicate, with innocent blue eyes peering out from under his amber locks. Drizzt waited to see if anybody else would follow before he himself followed the boy, guided by the whistling as young Liam wandered up into the mountain. In the Underdark, Drizzt could have crept up right behind him and patted him on the rump without being discovered. But after half an hour, he noticed the changes in the boy's speed and sudden lack of whistling. Liam knew he was being followed. Drizzt wondered if it was a third party that somehow the boy had sensed, and he called for Gwenevere, sending the panther off on a flanking maneuver.
I don't think I caught that. Because part of me was
it definitely took my second read through this chapter.
Okay. Because I was thinking, like, how would he have heard Drizzt? Like, unless
well,
Drizzt
sometimes you walk in the
careless,
woods, though, too, and you're like, oh, I'm being watched. You just get that sixth sense kind of feeling.
Gotcha.
Even though it's 90% of the time not real. A moment later, the child cries out in distress, and Drizzt drew his scimitars and charged forward without caution. He couldn't understand the words, but he could understand the desperation. Drizzt called for Gwen, but he couldn't wait. He charged on. He came to a crevasse bridged by a single log, young Liam hanging from the other side of it. His eyes grew wide at the sight of the ebony-skinned elf, scimitars in hand. Drizzt felt guilty, the boy only in trouble because of Drizzt's pursuit. At first he hesitated, caught off guard by the sudden meeting and its inevitable implications, but he quickly put those problems out of his mind and snapped his scimitars back in his sheaths before putting his arms across his chest in a Drow signal for peace. Liam had other thoughts and quickly swung himself up onto the ledge and pushed the log from its perch, taking away the bridge so Drizzt couldn't chase him. He had never been in danger, but he pretended to be in distress to flush out his pursuer, surely a family member who was trying to catch him for skipping out on his chores. The boy didn't wait for explanations. He darted off into the shrubbery. Gwenevere suddenly darted out and sprang across the gap, disappeared into the thicket on the other side.
Drizzt
called out.
That would be so terrifying for
watch?
Liam. You know,
Yeah.
like looking back and seeing this monstrous cat coming after you.
Just
like,
leap. Drizzt cried out, trying to halt the panther. After all, she had killed the only other human they ever encountered.
Right.
Drizzt couldn't cross below. It would take too long, so he backed up and ran, throwing himself across the chasm and using his innate powers of levitation to help extend the jump. He was relieved when he landed on the other side of the bank. This was the first time he had tried it since coming to the surface, and he wasn't sure it would work.
But he jumped anyway.
Yeah, because, you know, the kid was in danger. He didn't want
Right.
anything to happen. It's like, I love that way that it pulls you into that emotion. You could feel it tugging. Drizzt came into a clearing, and Gwen had pinned the boy face down on the ground with a paw, sitting calmly. Drizzt bid his loyal friend to come and leave the child alone. Liam made his way to his feet, eyes still wide with terror, and asked, What are you? Drizzt held out his arms to indicate that he didn't understand. And then suddenly, on an impulse, he poked himself in the chest and says, Drizzt Do'Urden. He noticed the boy moving slightly, suddenly turned on his heel and sprinted away, screaming, Help, it's a Drizzt! Drizzt looked over at Gwen and shrugged, and the cat seemed to shrug back. I loved this. It really reminded me of like the scene in E.T. when they finally meet E.T. and the two kids freak out.
Yeah.
Even though they were looking for E.T. There's just something so endearing to me about how like the innocent curiosity of a child bringing it into the shadow of something so dangerous, but the pure innocence of that child somehow like offsets the evil of the creature, right? It's a trope that's been used in so many times in movies, and I think it works every time, at least on me. It's the idea, you know, the kid trying to catch one of his siblings sneaking up, using the danger of the log as an excuse so that way it makes up for being caught, right? He's like, oh, wow, you know, I was almost killed. So, like, luckily, you know, you came here and helped me. The idea, but then all of a sudden ends up catching Drizzt or being caught by Drizzt. The child didn't even know enough to know just how much danger he could have been in.
Yeah.
And yet we're left with such a fun and wholesome moment that Drizzt and Gwen shrug at each other as he tears off back towards the farm, screaming the whole way.
Yeah, I forgot about that. It was so comical in that moment. Just
yeah. And again, though, it's such a stark contrast to your dim light and how the whole part ends. Because it's like, oh, we're having these fun, happy moments, and it's like, oh.
Right. Yeah, it's not a happy book anymore. You know, like, oh. No, I felt so bad after that. Oh. After my part, that is. After yours, it was, just funny.
Well, now I just wanted to bring it back up so people, you know, as they're working out in the gym, they can have that lighthearted feeling while they're listening to this podcast.
Totally. Awesome. Awesome dim lights this week. Just a reminder, anyone that's out there is listening, we want to hear your dim lights too. I know every once in a while someone will share them on via email or on the on our Drizzt cord. Love it, Jeffrey. Love it. So make sure you let us know. Let us hear about them. If you're not on the Drizzt cord already, make sure go to the link in the episode description. Click on that link. And we'll see you there. All right, Jeffrey. What do you say?
Yes.
Is it time to start going dungeon delving?
We should delve into the dungeon even though we're on the surface.
Oh, true. Man.
But again, for branding and merchandising purposes, we are going to do the dungeon delve.
Let's do the dungeon delve. The Dungeon Delve is the part of the show where we link this week's reading with our favorite tabletop role-playing game. And yeah, my Dungeon Delve this week has to be... I want to take a deeper look into what exactly a Barghest is, seeing as we were introduced to what seems like the big bad in this book, and he, Ugalu, is a Barghest. So, Barghests. I looked them up online, just did a quick Google search, and Wikipedia was the first thing that came up. And Barghests are of Northern English folklore. This is real life stuff, okay? Like not D&D related, but real life Northern English folklore. They are mythical, monstrous black dogs with large teeth and claws. And there are a number of tales of Barghests Some of them are like shapeshifters that can turn into like headless people and things like that, like really creepy stuff. But one of them is that when someone dies, a Barghest comes to collect you and is accompanied by all of the town's dogs, which is just kind of like a creepy visual there. And if you get in the Barghest's way, they can claw or bite you and the wound will never heal. So I just thought that was, just creepy and interesting. So as far as the D&D side goes, I couldn't find too much about how Barghests were first introduced to D&D. The earliest sources were actually referring to Ogaloo. And I didn't want to read too much, just in case there were spoilers,
Right.
So I tried to avoid those as much as possible. But the species does make an appearance in a 5e module called Dead in Thay, which was published in 2014, which is pretty early on in the life of 5e. I think 5e came out in 2014, if not 2013. And so they were featured in a couple other novels alongside, like Sojourn was the first novel that was listed as featuring Barghests. Timora's Luck was the next one, and then The Godcatcher was the next one. Was the third one. There were a few other ones that referenced them but didn't really feature them.
Okay.
But they even made an appearance in an old video game from 2002 called Icewind Dale 2, which I never played. I didn't really even know it was a thing. I mean,
no, me neither.
to be fair, I didn't start reading these books until probably 2003 or 4, like right after
I would have
that.
actually read them 3 years later. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So yeah, just a game before my time. I was playing video games back then, but just didn't know about that one. Oh, and Jeffrey, the most surprising place where they were featured for me, like it's surprising for me, not surprising like, wow, who would have known it, was in the card game called Dragonfire. Do you remember that game?
No.
Oh, you don't? It's a card.
I didn't play many card games.
Oh no, you played it. You played it with us.
Did I?
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's a card. It's a deck building game.
Okay.
Similar to Dominion. If you've played Dominion,
I know of it.
yeah, it's similar to that. Oh my gosh, the Harry Potter deck building game.
Okay.
You know that, okay? Because
I
we've
own that.
played that before. Yeah. So that game, except it's D&D. It's called Dragonfire.
Nice.
And you have these little, everybody has a little screen, like a DM screen, and it's your character on it, and it has a health bar and everything, and you're fighting monsters going dungeon delving, and one of the monsters apparently is a Barghest, and I don't remember seeing it in there. But it is a very, for people listening, and Jeffrey, you too, if you don't remember it, it is a very, very difficult game. If you play by the rules, you will win maybe once every 10 times. It's
Ew.
extremely hard. And so for that reason, we had to do some house rules to make it easier.
Nice.
But so that's where they were kind of featured, right? From the Forgotten World wiki, when I looked them up online, Barghests are described as goblin-wolf hybrids that, when in goblin form, are easily recognized. Like they're shapeshifters, right? When they're in goblin form, goblins can easily recognize them as being a Barghest, where when in wolf form, they're similarly easily recognized by canines. Whelps, which Ogaloo and his brother, which the name is Kemphana, they are currently whelps, right? They usually reach a height of about 1.8 meters. I use meters because I know we have some international guests, international listeners, I should say. 6 feet, about 6 feet. While adults reach about, I think it was 8 feet, 2.4 meters. Of course, on rare occasions, there can be gargantuan Barghists. They can reach gargantuan proportions. I don't know exactly what it takes. I feel like they're creatures that like eat other things and then like physically grow bigger because of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it says like they consume the life force. So
Right.
I mean, it would make sense to me.
So I feel like if there is a gargantuan one, that's just one that just never died, you know? Like never found
He's
a
a
foe.
hungry boy.
Right, never found a foe that could dispatch him. They are treacherous tyrants that seek power over the goblinoids, ordering them to do their bidding, and that's exactly what they do when they're on the material plane during their younger years, like we're seeing here. They will typically find a goblin party to rule over, occasionally eat some of them, as we saw with Nathak or Nathak. Poor Nathak. And then they'll continue to grow stronger until they mature enough to return to Gehenna, which is their realm that is not attached to the material plane. If they didn't eat enough strong souls within the material plane before they returned back to Gehenna, then they would either be killed or enslaved by Yugoloths, which I then, of course, had to look into Yugoloths. They are neutral evil fiends of the Grey Wastes. Again, another realm that is separate from the material plane. In 5th edition, Barghist can be found, apparently, in Volo's Guide to Monsters. It's a book I do not have, but I found a stat block online, and I'm hoping it's similar, if not identical. So I can post the stat block on our Discord to save us from the nitty gritty. Like I'll just bypass some of that. But some of the highlights that I have of Barghist are that they are medium fiends with a challenge rating of 5. So not like ridiculously tough. They have a hefty AC of 18 with what I would consider only a few hit points. They have 55. It's like considering the creature, I guess really since Barghist seem to almost be like PCs in that they eat things, they absorb their powers, they get XP, right?
Right.
So they kind of have a similar quality that player characters do. I feel like these creatures could really vary in HP significantly depending on the Barghist itself. Like if you're running into a whelp, sure, 55. But if you're running into a mature adult in Gehenna, probably closer to 250, I would think. But then the challenge rating, of course, is going to differ. So anyway, but I feel like that's kind of their essence. The idea that they eat things and they physically grow. They're going to be more difficult to defeat then. So I feel like some homebrew would make sense there. But anyway, Barghists have a shape change ability. They're able to change between their true form, goblin form, and wolf form. And as we saw in the book, possibly even having the option of changing into other creatures like a drow or just whatever they see. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, he wasn't. Would Olgulu have known what a drow was? I mean,
oh yeah, I don't know.
They all knew.
I
of
assume,
drow.
right?
Had he seen a drow?
Well, he must have. I don't know.
Like otherwise, how could he have changed into it? Right? He had to at some point.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, he was at least smart enough to know that if there's one drow, there's probably a drow party. In which case, he probably saw a drow party, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah, they have this shape change ability. They also are able to cast a few spells, like Blink. Blink would be very similar to... Oh, well, that Dimension Door. Dimension Door is a little different. So what we saw in the book, he was running toward the farm, and then all of a sudden he opened up a door, like a gate that cast him. It allowed him to jump from one location down to another. That's almost like Blink, but that's almost like Dimension Door as well. But Dimension Door, he's going from one dimension to another. I mean, he
so then
could
that's
anyway.
like probably how he goes back to Gehenna is using a
Oh, yeah.
dimension door.
Oh, totally.
Okay, so then
yeah.
Blink is probably what we saw with him running down the hill.
Probably. So, I mean, again, this book
As
is
close
from...
as we can translate, yeah.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, they can, in 5e, they can cast Blink, Suggestion, Levitate, and when they're in wolf form, they're able to cast Pass Without a Trace. And then once a day, they're able to cast Dimension Door. They do have multi-attack, so when they attack, they can attack with their claws and their jaws, like a bite attack. They also have an action called Feed, where the Barghest can basically eat a creature that's within 5 feet and is down to 0 hit points. If the creature fails a DC 13 Constitution save, they are immediately dead. They cannot be resurrected. But what's interesting is if the Barghest is then killed, then you are able to resurrect that creature. So I thought that was interesting. It was,
wow.
So like, are we going to see this happen in Sojourn? Is Drizzt going to get eaten by Olgalu and then revived by Mushi, who we don't know yet? Like, Mushi's going to come in, save the day, and then, like, revive Drizzt? I don't know. I guess we'll have to read part 2 to find out.
Randomly, the old lady that he ate in the barn.
Oh no, totally. Yeah, bring her back. There's that. There's also just a part of me. There's
Come back, Nathak.
Well, Nathak would be cool. Another part of me is just like one of the Thistledown children. Just one of them. Because we didn't see all of them die, right? We didn't.
Right.
We just heard like he went over to the room after hearing the cries.
Yeah.
Right. But we don't
know. We don't know they're all dead.
So I'm holding on to hope here, Jeffrey. I'm holding on to hope that there's at least one. Like Liam. Oh. Keep Liam alive.
You sweet summer child. Another throwback to the George R.R. Martin. Sweet summer child.
Oh, man.
But no, that's an excellent dungeon dub. I like it.
Oh, thank you.
It. For me, I wanted to take a look at the quickling named Tephanis in the story. This is our first introduction to a creature like this, and I got a soft spot for D&D creatures.
Totally.
So the first line that comes up on the Forgotten Realms fandom wiki reads, "They race themselves to death and scheme as fast as they can run."
Whoa, that's cool. I like that.
Right? It's also, as a matter of fact, from Bolo's Guide to Monsters.
Oh, nice. Okay, so they must be in there, too.
That's where I got my stat block. I'm going to read here
gotcha. Cool.
And this automatically makes me think of how we've seen Tephanis portrayed. They move so fast that they could cross a room and be back between the vowels of Olgalu is speaking.
Yeah. Or like, oh man, I love that when Olgalu started talking, like, or no, Tephanis was like, "Oh, do you want me to go kill him?" And he like started to go out and he's like, "No. Loved that.
Yeah. Right back in. They stand about 2 feet tall and they're a humanoid fae of slender build. They're similar in appearance to an elf, but they have sharper and more feral features. Quicklings hate all humanoids and wish nothing more than to kill them all. They are cruel, devious, and capricious. Now, I will fully admit that is listed in the fandom. Oh, I don't really know what capricious means off the top of my head. What do you know? Put Jeffrey, you on the spotlight here.
I was a physics major. My vocabulary is not great. Capricious?
Okay. Right.
No idea.
So they constantly... If anybody before gets a chance to go ahead, you can join the Discord or shoot us an email. Let us know what capricious means. We'll Google it, but I would like to get a fan to tell me so I can come on and explain how I was wrong.
We'll give you a shout out if you do.
Like, I can use it in a sentence. I don't fully know what it means.
I know how to pronounce it. Spell it? I don't know. If I didn't see it written out, I don't know.
Now, they constantly pace and shift in place when forced to be stationary. And now, for those of you listening, I am air quoting, so those of the ones on YouTube that are watching, they're going to see that I air quoted. Just to, tie the two together there real quick. So they spend most of their time performing acts of mischief on creatures slower than themselves, and they delight in causing suffering and blaming it on other creatures. They usually use daggers or short swords, and they prefer ambushes.
How would they? Of course, they prefer ambushes. How else would they attack?
Not in a large standing army,
right?
Probably. Interestingly, they were once a taller race of lazy and egotistical fae. But after being late and answering the summons from the Queen of Air and Darkness one too many times, she transformed them, making them incredibly fast, shorter in stature, and reducing their lifespan to an average of 15 years.
Wow.
Right?
That is really cool.
It's rumored that, even though their original race is unknown, they may have once been brownies who dabbled in forbidden magic.
Wait. Brownies?
Yeah, different kinds of fae. Well, fairies.
Oh, okay.
Sprites, brownies.
Not like Cub Scouts
No,
brownies.
not,
Okay.
not at all. Like, they're rumored to be brownies who would not give the Thin Mints away. They have an armor class of 16, hit points average 10. To average it, what you end up doing to get their hit points is you roll 3d4 plus 3. They have a speed of 120 feet per movement.
Yeah, they do.
That's quite fast. I mean, what is it? A dwarf goes 25 feet?
25. Gnomes, halflings,
so that's
dwarves,
almost
25.
Five times as far in a
Wild.
6-second span.
And so like, what's Drizzt, like 30? I mean,
Maybe
35,
35,
maybe
I think. Yeah.
max. But it's like, how is he gonna be able to fight something like this? I'm so interested to see what happens.
With mirrors. So they get a -3 to strength, a +6 to dexterity, +1 to constitution, +1 to wisdom, and a -2 to charisma. Dark vision of 60 feet, passive perception of 15. You can tell by the stats that they're not going to be, all that well liked or strong, but they will be quite fast and nimble.
Yeah.
Interesting skills. They have blurred movement, which means that attack rolls against quicklings have disadvantage unless the quickling is incapacitated or restrained.
Okay.
They also have evasion. So if the quickling is subjected to an effect that allows it to make a dexterity saving throw that would result in only taking half damage, they would take none if they succeeded. And then only half if they fail.
Okay.
So then for actions, they get multi-attack. They can make 3 dagger attacks.
Jeez.
The dagger attack gets a +8 to hit. It's a reach of 5 feet or a range of 20 to 60 feet. A hit does 1d4 plus 6 piercing damage. So not the most formidable foe, but it is definitely going to be, like a pain in the butt.
It's going to be annoying, yeah.
Yeah. And, goodness forbid that you've got, 4 or 5 or 6 of them in a room. Like, oh, no.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, like like you said, most characters are like 30 feet or so, right? This thing could quite literally run in, attack, run out, you get an opportunity attack, but then like the thing is out of reach unless you're doing
I wouldn't even
range
do
attacks.
that. What I would do is like I would wear like a bolo if I was the quickling, and I'd have small daggers all across my body, and I'd never get closer than 20 feet nor never get further than 60, and all I would do is run by throwing daggers at you the whole time. Boom, 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 in and out of range.
Well, with a +6 to their dexterity, yeah, they're gonna hit a lot of those throws or a lot of those attacks like crazy.
Yeah. But you can dart in and out. I mean, with 120 foot movement,
totally.
I can jump in, say 50 feet to a 30-foot range,
right?
Throw 3 daggers at you, jump another 70 feet back out, and now I'm 100 feet away from you. It's like, how are you gonna hit me?
The warlock can still get you with Eldritch Blast. That's like 120 feet, but still, like.
So if it's a warlock, maybe I'm throwing my dagger at 60, and.
Yeah, so that quickling definitely has me wondering, like the interaction that Drizzt had with it, like right off the bat, right? Like runs in, slices Drizzt's hand, yanks out his scimitar. Like, is Drizzt gonna be any match to this thing? Despite it
was
being
interesting
like,
because the first thing you saw him try to do was cut down the angle it can come at him, because he backed himself in between the trees, so that like it would have to come at him, not from angles.
Yeah, that's true.
So like he was already trying to find a way to nullify the speed of this thing. Right. He didn't even really know what he was looking at.
Right. And so like it reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you've watched Dragon Ball Z, the Dragon Ball show or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It seemed like every like generation they're like, look how fast they're going. It's like, what? I don't see anything. Like that's how fast this thing is moving, right?
Yeah.
And so just is Drizzt gonna have to train his eyes to be able to see quicker?
He's gonna blindfold his eyes and use the Zen attack. Yeah, I say that in jest, but now as I say that, I'm like,
no.
As a matter of fact, he's done that. Not to a creature like this, but he's done that.
He has, totally. He's gonna cast darkness on himself, and Oh man, you called it. I'm sure that's what's gonna happen.
Then we're gonna find out like suddenly Tyrannus just gets tired of running and Drizzt swats him like, oh,
Oogaloo's gonna eat him.
Oogaloo's just sitting there with his mouth open, waiting like a crocodile.
Oh man, awesome dungeon delve, Jeffrey. And yeah, that's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you everyone for listening. Remember that if you like the show, make sure to give us a 5-star rating. Also, make sure you're getting the most out of this podcast. Make sure you are picking up a copy of the book and you are reading along with us. Hey, if you don't have time to read, try listening to the audiobook while you're driving to work, while you're at work, while you're at the gym, or wherever. When you've read the next part, shoot us an email at drizztdoneright@gmail.com or log on to our Discord to join in on the discussion there. Remember, we would love to hear from you.
Ladies and gentlemen, drow, bugbears, orcs, ogres, goblins, and dwarves of all type, we've come to the end of the first part of the book. If you'd like to support this podcast, we do have a link that says support this podcast. It's in the episode description, and we appreciate everything that you choose to share with us.
Totally.
Here we sit on the cusp between episodes, so until you press play on the next one, remember to play fair and be well. Farewell, friends. We'll see you soon.